Clemson's defense is about to unleash absolute chaos under Tom Allen. We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of this show, and part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM, The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're new to the show, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss an episode. You know how we do it here on Locked On. Exclusive Clemson content Monday through Friday, every single week. And don't forget to follow me in between episodes over on X at The Morgan T Show, where we can talk about all things Clemson whenever and however you want. Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about how Tom Allen will unleash the Clemson defense in 2025. And what kind of defense will they use, a 4-2-5 or 4-3? And then the stars that I think maybe will have a big or little impact in 2025. But I appreciate everyone being a part of the show here on a Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in all week throughout the entire month of May or April, and now going into May. It's been great having you here with us. And if you're new to the show, don't forget to hit that notification bell too and subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the stuff we have out. All right, so Clemson fans, I want to jump into it. It's the end of the week, so I'll give you kind of something to think about over the weekend. But Tom Allen is kind of the biggest hype right now for Clemson. That Clemson defense is what everybody's talking about, and I think what we're going to have to talk about all offseason, just because this is the one big thing that we cannot wait to see actually show up on the football field in 2025. I mean, there's just this he's not your typical defensive hire. He seems to have made such a huge splash, a big wave of energy, and a very intense guy. But immediately from the beginning with his press conferences, it seemed as if he fit in with Clemson really well. And he's already changing Clemson's culture for Clemson's defense. And, bringing that aggressiveness and that versatile system that he has, I think will help Clemson become even better in 2025. Now, kind of rebounding from 2024. Penn State's defense was very good, ranked 7th in total defense, just allowing under 300 yards per game, created havoc, mainly by disguising different types of blitzes out there. And I think, that's one thing that I loved about the old Clemson defenses is when you look back at where they were most successful, I wouldn't say that they didn't have flaws. I think Clemson's defense in the past years, even when they won national championships, there were parts where you were like, okay, this guy or this player or this position group is not as good as the rest. And we just hope that offense doesn't exploit it. We hope that not only that offense doesn't exploit it, maybe the offensive coordinator and the play calling, but also that the quarterback that you're facing against can't exploit it either. And for me, you can be an offensive coordinator, be one of the best offensive coordinators in the country. But if your quarterback is kind of getting rocked or getting flustered in the pocket or not even able to have a comfortable pocket, I think that's where you can take even the coordinator out of the game, because you make the quarterback so confused. And I feel like that's where Clemson's prior defenses of the past did really well in disguising those blitzes and really coming after the quarterback, trying to get into the backfield very quickly. And it kind of said, hey, you know what? To the quarterback, like, prove to me that you're actually a good quarterback. Prove to me that you can actually handle disguised blitzes from many different angles. Hey, prove to me that you can, detect when we're just giving you a shell coverage and that's not actually what we're in. And we're going to confuse you and we're going to call the play at the very last second. And I think that really worked out well because, honestly, more often than not, the quarterback was not really ready. The quarterback was not ready to face, the opposition that they were going to be getting. They weren't ready to face that aggressiveness and that versatile system that I think Tom Allen brings to the mix now in 2025. Clemson did not finish good in total defense last year, and they needed a major upgrade, not necessarily with personnel, but really with a voice, with direction, with accountability, and with aggressiveness. There were too many times, I think, walking away from games, walking away from offensive series against Clemson where it was like, wow, they just let them do whatever. They let them kind of have their way, run their scheme, and we just kind of sat back and said, bend, don't break, and let them walk all the way to the end zone. I am kind of interested to see how things are going to work out, because I do feel like there's a lot of old Clemson in Tom Allen's approach, but he is not old Clemson as far as the 4-3 defense. And we'll talk about that in segment 2. He, more often than not, really the majority of the time, uses a 4-2-5 nickel scheme that really is kind of his base defense. And he likes to create chaos from that scheme. Will it work in the ACC? Will he be able to unleash it against the competition that he has with Clemson's schedule? I think so. And he's also been very obsessed recently about the fundamentals and tackling. And that also reminds me of old school Clemson. Clemson was 84th against the run last season. Think about that. Let that sink in. 84th against the run. I mean, that is not what we're used to as Clemson fans by any stretch of the imagination. Allen runs spring practices like a tackling clinic. I mean, he throws them through gang pursuit drills, Madden shuffle, tackling circuits. At Indiana, he had his defenses flying to the ball. At Penn State, they were flying to the ball. At Clemson, you're hearing rumblings that the pads are popping louder than ever, or louder than they have in many years. And so this obsession with the fundamentals and with tackling, I think, will play out very well when it comes to the fall, because you have to be able to do the fundamentals and the basics at a high level. You cannot build into the advanced levels without having a good foundation. And so it makes sense that he would kind of reset the team. And you kind of have to do that as a coach coming in, whether or not they were as bad as we think they were. You kind of have to come in and kind of start from the fundamentals, because your approach and your technique, your personality, your teaching style can kind of build from there, So it's not only beneficial for the team to get back to the basics and run through it again, but it's also a setting point for the coordinator himself. Tom Allen is definitely someone who brings a lot of energy, and he's very electric. His speeches are very impactful. The players from Penn State said that he was a very contagious person, and bringing that kind of fire and energy to the locker room and to the different groups on the defensive side of the ball. When you first saw him come out on the podium, it was like, wow, this guy fits really well with Dabo Swinney. This guy fits really well with Clemson. And he has this thing called Leo, and it defines kind of how he gives his direction to his team. It's called Leo, which is love each other. So that's kind of where his foundation is built off of. It sounds soft when you read it out loud, when it's coming from someone like me, but it seems to be something that can build teams to an elite level. And it's rooted in his faith. It's rooted in his personal investment in the players. And you can see that even from the veterans coming out and saying that they've got an instant connection with the guy, that they feel like he really does care about them. The defenses aren't just playing hard. The idea is that they'll play for each other. And those kind of things seem kind of cliche. They seem kind of soft, right? But at the end of the day, when you're out there on the field and you care about the person next to you, you trust the person next to you to do the right thing, and you see that person struggling, you want to pick them up. You see that person needing help, you want to go over there and help. You see that person doing well, Well, you want to step up too, because you don't want to be the one left behind or letting them do everything. So it's an elite level of accountability, even though it's, under the name of love. But I think another thing that I'm excited for with Tom Allen is getting to a point where you're hunting turnovers. I think that Penn State when he was with Penn State, he showed that he was a very opportunistic coach, and he got his teams to be in the right position to get pick sixes and turnovers and fumbles. And I think that kind of aggressiveness and preparation gives you opportunity to take advantage of mistakes on the field. So I would like to see the defense flip the field more. I'd like to see the defense score some more, and that will alleviate some of any kind of struggles that the offense may be having as they work through things. LSU is first up on the map for Clemson in 2025, and we'll get to see exactly how it works out against an SEC opponent that's going to be a ranked opponent. But the biggest thing, and I think the question that I see in the comments a lot is, well, Clemson's always been a 4-3 team, so I don't really like the 4-2-5. I don't like how Wes Goodwin did it, and I don't think it works well for Clemson. I want to go back to a 4-3. And I'll give you some of my thoughts on the 4-2-5 and the 4-3 here in the second segment as we continue the show. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House, whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Tom Allen's base defense is the 4-2-5 nickel. And I can understand where people are kind of skeptical by that, because for many years during the Dabo Swinney era, we've seen the 4-3 defense. And what we saw with the 4-2-5 last season was not as exciting. It didn't seem like a good match. It didn't seem like it was stopping the teams in the spread, because they were still spreading it out and just running all over Clemson. How is that going to work better now? And I know a lot of people say, well, the 4-2-5 has been one that has been successful against modern offenses. You have 4 down linemen, so you're going to have 2 interior defensive linemen. Peter Woods will be 1. I'm assuming someone like DeMonte Capehart will be 2. And then you'll have your outside edge rushers, which will be, I'm assuming, TJ Parker and Will Help. Then you're going to have 2 linebackers instead of 3 linebackers. I don't know how long that's going to last, because I really do like Jeremiah Alexander, and I feel like he's going to be able to contribute early and often. I think that you're not going to be able to have Wade Woodaz or Sammy Brown sitting on the bench while Jeremiah Alexander goes in there. So there's going to have to be an opportunity for 3 linebackers, maybe more than Tom Allen is used to or is typically uses. The 2 linebackers off the top of the head that I think that they would use, they'd be ridiculous not to, would be Wade Woodaz and Sammy Brown. But they do have some other guys that are looking for opportunities. 5 defensive backs might be where it kind of scares you a little bit, because there's a little bit of unknowns from the cornerback position when it comes to depth. And the safety position is a little bit unknown as well. It's very flexible. It can play very fast, and it can work really well against a team that tries to spread you out and pass the ball a bunch. Also, it can be easy to kind of disguise different kind of blitzes, because you don't know if they're covering the slot receiver or not, if they're in a zone or not. and you don't know if they're helping out in the run or not, because it could be a nickel player that is pretty hybrid, that also could be an outside linebacker and really kind of disguise things. Sizing up your defense appropriately for what is going to happen in front of you, what type of team you have, is going to be key. You're not going to be able to heavily do a 4-2-5. I think for a team that's going to always, be a run first team. But it did help Penn State finish 7th nationally. And for the doubters out there, Ashton Jeanty didn't have that good of a game against Penn State either. Now, Clemson spring installs are going to be centered around installing this Tom Allen defense that is a nickel defense. Clemson does have the players to run it, though. I think with the addition of Will Help and what I've already told you on the defensive line front, you got to be pretty confident with who's out there. TJ Parker and Peter Woods, they can handle the 4-2-5. Parker is explosive off the edge. Peter Woods is versatile inside. He's going to possibly take up 2 blockers. In the secondary, you would want to trust Avion Terrell. Khalil Barnes could be a guy that could get back into more of a traditional position and maybe do a little bit better than he did last season. And Wade Woodaz is already a guy who is a great hybrid player, so he could possibly be that hybrid nickel guy in case you need him, where you have Jeremiah Alexander out there. The roster is going to, and the scheme is going to force the guys that are the most athletic out on the field. That's what the scheme demands. So if you're not athletic, you're going to slip to the wayside. You're going to be on the bench more often than not. But the focus is to shut down most of these offenses that are centered around spread. You're going to get spread from Texas. You're going to get spread from Miami. You're going to get spread from NC State. These teams live out of the shotgun, and the 4-2-5 is supposed to help keep that under control. Clemson does have the talent to do it. They have the position players to do it and to cover both the run and the pass while still being more defensive back heavy. They can still bring the heat, in my opinion, and Tom Allen knows exactly how to do it. I think he's very confident in what his system can bring to the table. But the biggest flaw that Clemson had was that run defense. So I can understand where people would be a little bit apprehensive about a 4-2-5, because it does seem like to put you maybe a little bit more vulnerable against the run. And that's why I think there'll be a hybrid multiple look. You may see a lot of 4-2-5. I think you might see the majority of that. But when you get against run-heavy teams like Louisville, I think that, or teams that are going to get you in the red zone a ton, I think that's where it'll convert to a 4-3. I think you bring in a third linebacker like Jeremiah Alexander to be in with Sammy Brown and Wade Woodaz to clog the box up. And I think that's where they will show a little bit versatility there from the play calling. It's not going to be the rule, in my opinion, though, because I think, in my opinion, it's going to be about 80 to 70% of the time you're going to have a 4-2-5. I know that scares a lot of Clemson fans because that's not what traditionally you've seen from Clemson over the years. We know a 4-3 works with the orange and white, but we don't really know how well a Tom Allen's defense will work. And I think it will be improved from a Wes Goodwin nickel as well. So I'm curious to see how things work on the outside. I'm curious to see how the cornerbacks respond in getting into these kind of situations. I do think that Clemson's schedule is much more difficult, so they're going to have to be versatile. If things aren't working in the 4-2-5, hopefully they will bounce around to what is working based on the different kind of looks you're getting from the offense. And that's really the thing. You can't say that you're versatile if you only do the same kind of defense the entire time, because the offense is going to change it up on you. If they're smart at all, they're going to change up on you. But you can still be flexible in a 4-2-5. And the main thing is to stay fast and don't let any kind of slot receivers beat you. But as long as they can keep that balance and continue to be aggressive against the run, I think Clemson's going to be just fine, whether you use a 4-2-5 or a 4-3. I would like to see a mix of both, but I wouldn't be shocked if you saw majority 4-2-5. All right, we're going to finish up the show talking about Clemson's defensive stars who could possibly explode under Tom Allen's tutelage, and also anybody who I think that maybe needs to show a little bit more and tell us and kind of prove to us what they can do. Tom Allen has the talent to make really a lot of things work out this season coming up. He's kind of fitting into a really good scenario based on what Dabo Sweeney and their staff have already built in. And the guys that we talked about, like TJ Parker, like Peter Woods and Avion Terrell, those are to me going to be some center points around locking down the best players and flustering the quarterback. Parker and Woods' main idea is Woods would be, I think, to take up multiple blockers, but also get to the backfield and disrupt the interior runs. Parker's going to be that guy to get to the edge and really fluster the quarterback. Avion Terrell is going to be another guy who's going to shut down a number one wide receiver to the outside and also get in and fluster the quarterback even without having to get into his face. To me, the guy who's poised to have a monster season the most is TJ Parker. In the previous show this week, I mentioned to you that I do think he is going to be a first-round draft pick after this season. He's got 16 and a half sacks, 6 forced fumbles under his belt already. And he could get in double-digit sacks again in 2025. I think that he could easily earn All-American honors in 2025. And with Peter Woods healthy and leaner, able to dominate the inside, Tom Allen's scheme is going to be able to free him up to get on the attack. Avion Terrell to the outside, locking down their best player or, at best wide receiver, I think that you could see a lot of success with this starting lineup out there. I think the big glue guy is Wade Woodaz in the entire thing. He's got to be able to get everyone together and mesh and lead the team. Considering that he's one of the senior guys, it's, this will be his final go at it at Clemson before he goes into the NFL. Some surprise names that I've got circled. I think that you should too. One is Darian Mayo. 6'7". I think he's already causing problems in spring ball. We saw a little bit of him in the spring game. He is an absolute nightmare over there, but he's got to be able to fit into his own spot, and him being able to kind of improve and not have much of a fall off from like a TJ Parker or Will Helt will be huge. He can be an outside guy that really dominates. Now, his size may be kind of shocking to people because you can definitely see him from a long way away. But he could be somebody who could really disrupt a quarterback, not only even if he doesn't get to the backfield, if he just puts his hands up and causes some disruption there and bats down some balls. Another surprise guy that I think is really not super surprising to fans of this show, but Amari Adams. I know he's very young. He's new to the team. But his rare combination of speed and power, to me, is a guy that going to have to rotate him in. But the more you see him, the more you're going to love about him, and the more you're going to want him on the field as the season goes on. So those are two guys that I think are really going to benefit well that didn't benefit last season or weren't on the team last season. And I think that you're going to see a jump in both of those guys. As far as guys that I feel like have some pressure to improve, have some pressure to show me something, Khalil Barnes is definitely one of those guys. He had flashes as a freshman, but he got lost a lot in coverage. His turnover ability kind of went down. And even though he can still get you some interceptions, he still struggled with losing coverage and containment in zone and causing not only himself to look bad, but other teammates out there to look bad because he wasn't switching off properly. Tom Allen, I think, will be able to correct that pretty quickly, if not already, because he's a no-nonsense guy about fundamentals. So you can't go off and do your own thing like Khalil Barnes was allowed to do last season. He's got to step up or risk losing some playing time to some of these younger guys. And I think that Khalil Barnes is definitely one of those guys who you can trust to step up. Another guy that I'd like to see that I still have a ton of questions about, and I don't know if we're going to get them answered or not, is Vic Burley. You know, we talked a ton about him as he got on the team, but injuries have really kind of slowed him down. So is this going to be a year where he can fit into the program and learn from Tom Allen and learn from Nick Eason and be able to actually provide something to the team? I'm not sure. I have a big question mark on him and how he's going to be able to improve. And then also the backup cornerbacks as well. Miles Oliver, Brandon Strozier, Corian Gibson. These are guys that Dabo Swinney has talked about in one aspect or another, but you really don't know what you're going to get from them yet at all. And Clemson is, to me, very inexperienced at the cornerback position outside of the top two. So how are they going to rotate properly without giving up a lot of experience, a lot of talent, being able to maintain coverage on the outside appropriately so that you don't get gashed that way? It'd be terrible to go through this entire offseason to get into the 2025 season to know that you improve your rush defense drastically, but then at the cost of losing your pass defense. So there still needs to be a big balance between the two. And I think that Dabo Swinney is going to be able to put it all together. I feel that this season is going to be very successful for Clemson. And I believe that hiring of Tom Allen is still one of the best decisions that Dabo Swinney has made, outside of maybe Matt Luke and Garrett Riley. I mean, he's had a string of very good hires after a few little kind of worrisome head scratchers here and there. So Dabo Swinney's got his team in the right position as we continue to think about what they will do next and how they will rebound from 2024, which was not a bad season, but it's just some things that they'd like to clean up. The fan base also would like to see cleaned up as well. Hey, I appreciate you being a part of the show today. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith, as you know, I've been on the show with him. He gives you the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. You will be the most informed fan as rapid changes in college football happen every single day. Find the Portal podcast over on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right. Thank you so much. I hope you have a good rest of your week or weekend, and we'll see you next week. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.